August 1958. An American submarine glides beneath the North Pole, nuclear-powered, unbeaten in endurance, a dream made steel. Nautilus was proof that mankind could bend the atom to chase the horizon for weeks, not hours. Yet this triumph would become a technical eulogy, haunted by metallurgy limits, a 900-hour core life, and spiraling costs. Why did the world's most futuristic vessel end in quiet obsolescence? The stakes begin with a single radical need. What does it mean to vanish beneath the sea, to become something unseen and untraceable? In the early 1950s, that question stopped being rhetorical. It became a strategic demand. To vanish was now a measure of survival. Diesel-electric submarines, the backbone of navies through World War II, lived at the mercy of the surface. Their batteries ran dry in a matter of hours. Even the best could not remain submerged for more than a few days before rising to breathe, exposing themselves to radar and patrol aircraft. Every surfacing was a gamble, one that enemy sonar and depth charges made increasingly costly. In the early 1950s, this vulnerability grew intolerable. The oceans had become transparent to new detection methods, and the Cold War demanded a vessel that could vanish for weeks, not just hours, beneath the waves. Rear Admiral Hyman G. Rickover, a relentless force within the U.S. Navy, saw the answer in atomic energy. He argued that a submarine powered by a nuclear reactor could travel at high speed, submerged for as long as the crew could endure. No need for air, no need to surface, no need to show itself to the world above. Rickover pressed for a reactor capable of running for up to 900 hours at full power, a leap so great it bordered on science fiction. Where diesel boats measured their endurance in days, Rickover's Nautilus would measure hers in months. The old constraints of oxygen and battery faded and were replaced by a new kind of limit, the stamina of men and the reach of uranium fuel. The Navy, faced with the prospect of irrelevance, gave Rickover his mandate and the funds to pursue it. The age of the nuclear submarine began not with a launch, but with a refusal to accept the boundaries of existing technology. Doubts lingered even as Nautilus slipped into the water. Skeptics questioned whether atomic power could deliver in the unpredictable world beneath the sea. Then in May 1955, Nautilus set out to prove them wrong. The crew sealed the hatches and steered her south from New London, Connecticut. Over the next 89.8 hours, the submarine remained submerged, traveling 1,381 nautical miles, further and longer than any submarine had managed without surfacing. The old limits of battery and air faded into memory. Nautilus ran silent and uninterrupted, its reactor providing energy as long as the uranium core held out. This was not a controlled test, but a real-world voyage that silenced many critics. The numbers told the story. Nearly 4 days underwater, a continuous run from New England to Puerto Rico, every mile logged on a single charge of atomic fire. For Commander William R. Anderson, who would later guide Nautilus beneath the polar ice, these early missions were both proof and promise. The submarine had not just met expectations, it had rewritten them. Each hour submerged, each mile covered, was a quiet rebuke to the doubters. Nautilus had shown what nuclear power could achieve, and the world took notice. At the heart of Nautilus, a single S-2W pressurized water reactor transformed uranium's atomic energy into the relentless motion that defined a new era beneath the waves. The reactor, designed by Westinghouse and tested in Idaho before its installation, generated approximately 13,400 shaft horsepower, enough to push the 320-foot hull through the ocean at speeds previously impossible for a submarine. Every watt of power began with a controlled chain reaction inside a heavily shielded core, where 93% enriched uranium fuel released heat that turned pressurized water into steam. That steam spun two turbines, each precisely aligned to feed their combined force through a single reduction gear and onward to one propeller shaft. From fission to thrust, the energy pathway was direct, efficient, and silent. No diesel rumble, no need for air, only the steady hum of machinery separated from the crew by layers of steel and lead. The hull itself was a study in containment and ambition. Measuring just over 320 feet from bow to stern, with a beam of 28 feet and a draft of 26 feet, Nautilus displaced 3,764 tons on the surface and 4,092 tons submerged. Within these dimensions, engineers balanced the demands of pressure resistance, hydrodynamic efficiency, and the need to house a nuclear plant that occupied nearly half the vessel's length. The pressure hull, forged to withstand depths of 700 feet, wrapped the machinery in a cocoon of steel, isolating the fission heat from the cold ocean beyond. Every inch of space was measured, every ton accounted for, so that the chain reaction at the core could drive the entire mass, reactor, turbines, and hull forward through the deep for as long as uranium and engineering would allow. Life inside Nautilus was measured by the hum of machinery and the press of steel. 104 men, 13 officers, and 91 enlisted shared the narrow corridors and tight compartments, living as both crew and caretakers of a machine that never truly slept. Each man was assigned a role in the silent ballet of watches, maintenance, and drills, their routines dictated by the rhythms of a vessel designed for endurance, not comfort. The submarine's capabilities set new boundaries for what a crew could expect beneath the waves. Nautilus could reach 22 knots on the surface and up to 25 knots when submerged, speeds that left World War II-era submarines far behind. At these velocities, the hull cut through water with a force that demanded constant vigilance, every gauge, every valve, every bearing under scrutiny. The test depth, officially rated at 700 feet, pressed the hull with pressures that would have crushed any diesel boat of the previous generation. For the men on board, every dive was a reminder of the stakes, the ocean outside, the reactor within, and the thin margin between them. Armament was straightforward but formidable. 6 bow-mounted 21-inch torpedo tubes gave Nautilus the power to strike, yet her true weapon was endurance. Patrols could last as long as supplies and the crew's stamina allowed. Unlike their predecessors, these sailors did not count hours until the next breath of fresh air. Instead, they measured time in watches and miles, submerged for weeks, surfacing only when necessary. The limits of Nautilus were no longer set by batteries or fuel, but by the human beings tasked with maintaining the delicate balance of technology and survival. The promise of endless submerged patrols came with a hidden price measured in hours and atoms. The original S-2W reactor core aboard Nautilus was rated for just 900 hours at full power, a technical boundary set not by ambition, but by the realities of the 1950s nuclear engineering. By early 1957, after crossing 60,000 nautical miles, the first core reached exhaustion. Refueling was no simple task. The submarine entered dry dock for months, its hull opened, and its radioactive heart was carefully replaced. Each core change exposed the limits of early reactor metallurgy and fuel chemistry. The next overhaul, from May 1959 to August 1960 at Portsmouth Naval Shipyard, was more than routine maintenance. Engineers confronted evidence of hull fatigue, steel structures enduring stresses that could not have been fully predicted when the blueprints were drawn. Every deep dive and every surge of speed compounded microscopic cracks and wear. By the end of the decade, the prototype's physical endurance was being outpaced by the demands of the mission. The vessel's future depended on choices that weighed engineering effort against mounting economic cost. By the late 1970s, the ledger told a story of diminishing returns. Naval Sea Systems Command projected the cost to refuel and overhaul Nautilus at $32 million, a sum that exceeded the $28 million price tag of building a brand new attack submarine with modern systems. The calculus was no longer about pride or precedent, but about numbers and priorities. The Navy's focus had shifted to the Polaris missile submarines, whose strategic value and technical advances drew funding and attention away from aging pioneers. In May 1979, Nautilus began her final journey under nuclear power, traveling from Groton to Mare Island for inactivation. On April 3, 1980, the official paperwork ended her career. The hull that once shattered endurance records now awaited a quieter fate. In 1985, after extensive radiation remediation and debate over preservation standards, Nautilus opened as a museum ship in Groton, Connecticut. The vessel that once redefined what submarines could be now served as a silent instructor, her story etched in steel and memory. Nuclear propulsion gave us speed and reach once thought impossible. Yet the Nautilus now rests as a museum, its core silenced and its promise unfulfilled. As global navies invest billions in new technology, the Nautilus reminds us, ambition alone never conquers the limits of material, economics, and time. Thanks for watching.